What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's second exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Anthony.
And for this exclusive segment, we are going to be doing our weekly Stardom Sit-em episode. Be sure to tune in, listen to the whole thing. Also, be sure to check out our other content this week. On Tuesday, we did our podcast and we did a mock draft episode, so be sure to check that out. Also, coming out tomorrow, our best bets episode and our podcast coming out today, so be sure to check all that out.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys don't want to miss Mock Draft Tuesday. Every other Tuesday, we're dropping a new mock draft, new players, discussing new things. You don't want to miss that, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. We've been getting some new subscribers from these mock drafts and some of these other videos that have been doing really good. So if you're new here, what's up? We appreciate you guys showing us love. Follow us on Instagram. We got some giveaways coming soon. We're going to a Sixers game tomorrow, so we'll post where we're at. You can come say what's up to us if you're there. With that being said, before we get into anything else, speaking of the studio coming up, giveaways coming up, Eagles games coming up, none of that would be possible without our amazing sponsor.
Little Italy Pizzeria. They got the best cheesesteaks, the best pizza in all of Delaware. 2 locations. One of them is in Middletown, Delaware. The other one is in Townsend. It is a great family business with great food, great prices, great people. Come in and check it out. Couple booths. We got TVs on every wall, so come in and bring the family. Watch some football games on Sunday. Or if you're of age, get a drink, get some lunch, get some dinner. You know, that's kind of on you. Personally, I love the cheesesteaks, but all the food is good, so come in and check it out. Let them know that the greatest podcast on turf sent you. They will take care of you. Also show proof that you're subscribed, and they will hook you up with an additional discount.
If you show proof that you're subscribed, pretty much you're getting a 10-15% discount. Why not? It's already cheap prices. Prices are already cheap as shit. Cheapest prices around. So you're getting a discount off if you show you're subscribed to the greatest podcast on turf. It's pretty easy. So come and get some food. Show some love to our sponsor, My Family's Business. We appreciate it. They appreciate it. It all goes hand in hand together. And with that being said, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I'll start. My stardom quarterback this week, unfortunately, it is Cam Newton going up against the Falcons. Cam Newton last week, he got benched and, well, kind of scored you 9 points, unfortunately. So, personally, I don't blame you for not starting him, but I am. I was an owner of Kirk Cousins last week, and he did okay. But I dropped him this week to pick up Cam Newton. Because, well, I'd rather lose to Cam Newton getting benched than lose to Kirk Cousins sucking. Unfortunately. But the Falcons, they've allowed the 4th most rushing yards and the 2nd most points to quarterbacks. Cam Newton is very familiar with the Falcons team in general because he has played against them his whole entire career. Cam Newton has the rushing upside to get QB1 numbers. If Cam Newton doesn't get benched, he will get you 20 points. That's how I feel. I don't think he gets benched against the Falcons. I think he has success, so go ahead and start Cam Newton this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Cam Newton and Taysom Hill are kind of similar guys to me in fantasy. They both do pretty much the same stuff. They can both rush you a lot. They can both throw you some yards. They're both pretty good at what they do for as bad as they are. My stardom quarterback this week, I'm going with Sleepy Joe Burrow. I know he's a little bit banged up. Excuse me. I know he hurt his little pinky or whatever, and I know he was sore or whatever the hell it was. But the fact of the matter is the 49ers are kind of bad against quarterbacks for fantasy. I think they're number 10. They've given up the 10th most points to quarterback in fantasy. And I mean, their defense is pretty good. Get your foot off the wall, Mike. They've allowed the 10th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. And for a defense, it's pretty good. That kind of says a lot to me. So, I mean, the Bengals, they have good matchups across the board this week, especially Joe Burrow and the Bengals wide receivers. So if you need a quarterback to start, he's available in 90% of leagues. I know he's available in a couple leagues I'm in. So if you need a streamer quarterback and somehow Joe Burrow is still available, stream him. And if you have Joe Burrow on your team, go ahead and start him this week.
For sit-em this week, I am sitting, as mentioned before, Kirk Cousins going up against Pittsburgh. It's really as simple as this. I know Adam Thielen brings red flags to me for this Minnesota Vikings offense. If Dalvin Cook is out, Adam Thielen is out. I don't see them having a lot of success against Pittsburgh. Kirk Cousins, he's been okay. He's been kind of middle of the road, about 16 to 20 points a game. But Pittsburgh, they have been pretty good against quarterbacks. They haven't allowed more than 1 touchdown pass to a quarterback in the past 7 or so weeks. So I would say that is pretty good numbers going up against quarterbacks. Pittsburgh has kind of found their stride, I would say. They did really good last game. Kirk Cousins, I would sit him this week. with no Adam Thielen, I see a lot of field goals probably because I think they struggle in the red zone. Justin Jefferson is obviously still there, and I think he gets a bump with Adam Thielen being out, but I would not feel confident starting Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that one, and I also really like this next sit-em. We're sitting Ryan Bum Tannehill this week, going against the Jaguars. Over the last, I would say, 4 games, Ryan Tannehill's thrown 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He's playing without A.J. Brown. He don't have anyone to throw to, and he's just not very good. So go ahead and sit Ryan Tannehill this week because he's a scrub, and there's got to be a better option available to start than Ryan Tannehill this week. I know he's playing the Jaguars, but the fact of the matter is Ryan Tannehill sucks, and he don't have anyone to throw to, and he's just a bad quarterback. So you're going to sit Ryan Tannehill for the rest of the year because he's a scrub.
Jumping to running backs to start off, Javonte Williams against Detroit. Now, a report of Melvin Gordon coming back and practicing. I just saw that. He did practice today, yesterday, Wednesday. So, unfortunately, it's probably going to be an ugly committee again, and Melvin Gordon will get half the carries, and Javonte Williams won't be a RB1 like he was when he was starting. But I do still think that you can start him this week against the Detroit Lions. They have allowed the third most points to running backs. Javonte Williams is still a solid option. I think he is still the best running back in.
After we were rudely interrupted by Santa and his sleigh riding on the fire truck.
Javonte Williams is still a solid flex option. You could argue that he is a RB2 this week against Detroit, allowing, like I said, the third most points to running backs. I think he is the main man in this Denver Broncos offense. I do think he takes over the majority of the carries. It should be his time. I'm tired of the Broncos doing stupid stuff in Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon has sucked his whole entire career. He's held back Eckler his whole entire career. And now he's holding back Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon's out of Wisconsin. Eckler, nice. I don't really know.
Colorado State, maybe?
Maybe.
Something.
But Javonte Williams is still a decent start this week. If you got teams on, or if you got running backs on bye, such as Jonathan Taylor, Myles Gaskin, if you happen to start him, Miles Sanders, if you start that stud, and the Patriots. So, yeah.
Another start I really like this week. I agree with what you said about Javonte. I think he is going to take over as the primary back. It's only been a matter of time, and I think last week he kind of did that going against the Chiefs defense. It's been fairly good. And speaking of running backs against the Chiefs defense, it may be a surprise if you listen to the greatest podcast on turf. But I'm starting Josh Jacobs this week. I do not own him, but I would recommend to start Josh Jacobs because the Chiefs defense just got ran all over by Javonte Williams, who's a rookie. It seems like as this new coach has came in for the Raiders, he's been trying to get the running game more involved. Kenyon Drake is out for the year. So, I mean, that could be a good thing for Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has seen 20 touches in back-to-back games. He's gotten at least, I think it was 90 total yards and touchdowns and at least a touchdown in the past 2 games, which is really good for a guy like Josh Jacobs, who I thought was going to suck. So with that being said, go ahead and start Josh Jacobs this week more confidently than he's been all year. He's playing against the Chiefs defense that has not been very good against the run this year. They've gotten better against the pass, and they've been giving up less and less points. But last week showed that they are very weak against the run still, no matter how good their defense has gotten.
My next final start running back this week is Deontay Foreman going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would say you can arguably start both running backs of the Titans going up against the Jaguars. This is a positive game script for the Titans. The Titans should win this ball game, and when they do, I think that they are going to give the ball to the running backs a ton. Deontay Foreman last game had 19 touches, 100 yards, a fumble held him back a little bit, and then Hilliard didn't have as many touches, but he still had 100 yards and a touchdown. So I think you can honestly start both of these running backs. I think that Deontay Foreman is probably the safer, higher floor running back. Hilliard is the higher upside guy. But I think they both get the ball a ton against Jacksonville. If the Titans end up winning this game, these running backs will have a huge fourth quarter because I think that's really all they'll do. The Titans, they made it pretty clear that they are going to run the football. That's what they do. They are a running football team. So I think both of these running backs can have success against the Jaguars. Easy game script, allowing the 9th most points to running backs. So, you know, if you're probably more down bad if you're starting Deontay Foreman. But like I said, if you have Jonathan Taylor and you have nowhere else to go, Deontay Foreman is a decent start.
Yeah, I like that one. And all those reasons are also reasons why you're sitting Ryan Tannehill this week because he's a scrub and because all they do is run the ball. My final sit-em running back, plural with an S, this week is the 49ers running backs. And I know the 49ers running back situation can be tricky, But the reason I say running backs is because it looks like JaMychal Hasty's the RB1 because Elijah Mitchell does have a concussion, so there's no telling if he might play yet. Or Jeff Wilson Jr., I know his knee's a little banged up. He may have tore his knee up a little bit. So that being said, I mean, if they both get ruled out, you have to start JaMychal Hasty. Or, I mean, even if Elijah Mitchell, even if one of them's ruled out, I think you can still feel safer to start the other two. The 49ers are playing the Bengals this week, who have allowed the 5th most points to fantasy football running backs in the season so far. So, I mean, I know the 49ers running back situation can be tricky, and I know the Bengals may be pissed off trying to put a lot of points up. But like I said, the 49ers defense has been solid against the run so far, which has nothing to do with the 49ers running backs. I'm rambling. But with that being said, start the 49ers running backs. What is that for all the noise?
Jumping to my first sit-em running back this week, I'm sitting Ezekiel Elliott going up against the Washington football team. There goes another Santa. Ezekiel Elliott this week, I sat him last week, and I'm going to run with it until the wheels fall off. Ezekiel Elliott is banged up. He is not his former self. Tony Pollard is obviously the best running back in Dallas, and I think eventually he will probably take the job. Going up against Washington, it is not the greatest matchup. They've allowed, I think they're ranked 12th against running backs, which is pretty solid, upper half against running backs. And Ezekiel Elliott just ain't his former himself. He's injured. He looks slow. Washington is bad against the pass, good against the run. So, all that being said, I would lean more towards the pass catchers on this offense. I know Tony Pollard just got marked questionable, so if Tony Pollard doesn't play, that changes the thing for Ezekiel Elliott because he's going to get enough touches to be our RB1. But if Tony Pollard does play, Zeke does play, I'd lean towards sitting Zeke if you have better options. But like I said, if you have Jonathan Taylor, you're going to start Zeke. And I definitely wouldn't put him on any daily fantasy teams.
Nope. I've learned that lesson the hard way. For my only sit-em running back this week, I'm sitting James Robinson this week. The whole James Robinson situation is kind of weird to me. The main reason I'm sitting in those because the Titans are one of the top 3 run teams against running backs for fantasy football. So they don't give up a lot of points and yards to running backs. That's one. Number 2, he's been injured. He's on the injury report every day. His knee and his heel are hurt. 3, he fumbled and Carlos Hyde out-touched him in the last game against the Rams. So, I mean, that says a lot. When you fumble and Carlos Hyde is taking snaps from you, the next game probably isn't going to be very good. So, I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen. Urban Meyer seems to like Carlos Hyde a lot anyway. So, I mean, I know it's hard to sit James Robinson because he is James Robinson and he kind of is the focal point of the Jags offense to an extent. But I know it's hard, but I'm sitting him this week. I sat him last week. I lucked out and sat him last week. But, yeah, sit James Robinson. Like I said, he probably won't do much against the Titans, because the Titans are so good against the run and they really haven't given up any big run games except to my New England Patriots because we're the best team in football right now. So yeah, sit James Robinson this week because he probably isn't going to do much and it's concerning that he is in a committee with Carlos Hyde.
My final sit-em running back this week, it is Darrell Henderson going up against the Cardinals, who have allowed the 25th fewest points to running backs this season. I think this game is a shootout. I kind of think the Cardinals win big, and that leads to a Rams big fourth quarter. That's kind of how I felt about Matt Stafford this whole entire career. I think the Cardinals are one of the best teams in all of football, and I think that they beat them here. And Darrell Henderson coming off of an injury, going up against a solid defense, I would like to stay away from. So sit Darrell Henderson this week.
Yeah, I also think Sony Michel kind of ran himself into a committee last week, but I also agree with why you're sitting Darrell Henderson because I own him and I'm probably sitting him as well. So I'm glad we're on the same page about that one, and you should listen to us because we know what we're talking about. Moving on to sit-em wide receivers. My first
stardom wide receivers.
Oh, stardom wide receivers. Duh. I had 2 stardom wide receivers this week. The Broncos wide receivers. And the 2, I mean Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. The Broncos are playing against a Lions team who just got torched up by Jay Jettas and KJ Osborne and Tyler Conklin after Adam Thielen got out. And in my opinion, Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton are both better than KJ Osborne. So they should be in for a big day. Detroit is coming off a big win. Detroit just won their Super Bowl, but I ain't buying it. Denver's coming off tough loss to Kansas City. Denver's still trying to barely keep their head afloat from being eliminated from the playoffs. So I'm going ahead, and I say this every week, I'm starting the Broncos wide receivers this week. They have a good matchup against Detroit, who just gave up a lot of yards to KJ Osborne. So yeah, go ahead and start Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton this week.
For my first start on my receiver this week, this guy is a very obvious name, and he was a very high draft pick, but he has absolutely sucked in fantasy purposes
Respectfully.
all year probably. DK Metcalf going up against the Texans. I know you're probably like, oh, it's DK Metcalf, I'm starting him. But there's also people out there that aren't starting him because he has sucked in terms of fantasy purposes. But the Texans have allowed the most points to outside wide receivers this whole entire season. That is what DK Metcalf is. He is an outside threat that can burn you and score touchdowns. That is what he is. I think it's that week, personally. That week is coming up, and I think it's time. And I would hate to play against DK Metcalf this week, so if I am, that sucks. But I just feel like it's that time. So go ahead and start DK Metcalf this week.
Yeah, considering the common trends for you, you're probably playing against DK Metcalf. Because
Probably.
you played against everyone that had a good game last week.
Probably.
Respectfully, though. And who was your other stardom wide receiver this
You only
week?
have one.
Yeah, I only had the one.
My other start on my receiver this week, it is Mr. Consistent in Hunter Renfrow. I know the Chiefs have been pretty solid against receivers. They have given up the 25 fewest fantasy points to wide receivers so far. But Hunter Renfrow is the whole entire offense for this Kansas City Chiefs. He's not going to get you 25 fantasy points because that is not in his wheelhouse, but he will get you 15 right down the middle. He gets 7 catches, 80 yards, 15 points. There you go. Take it or leave it. This game is set up to score a lot of points. Derek Carr going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Last time it was 14-41. They got absolutely destroyed. But, Hunter Renfrow still got 14. Start Hunter Renfrow this week.
All right, and I'm moving on to our sit-on wide receivers now. After I jumped the gun, you're making so much noise, Mike. You're really just
Santa.
Yeah, seriously.
Worse than Santa.
And this isn't saying much. I just figured I'd throw it out there. The Giants wide receivers. That means Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard. Is he healthy?
Don't matter.
Especially Kenny Golladay because he effing blows. But yeah, sit the Giants wide receivers, especially with Jake Fromm as the starting quarterback this week, is what it sounds like is happening. And for that reason alone, you got to sit the Giants wide receivers. They're playing the Chargers, who have been pretty good against the pass as well. But when Jake Fromm's your starting quarterback, you can't start the wide receivers. I'm sorry, but you just can't.
My first sit on wide receiver this week, it is Michael Gallup going up against Washington. You could also sit Dalton Schultz going up against Washington. Personally, I think that the pecking order kind of goes CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. I don't know how much I love the third option in Dallas because I'm not really sure who it is. It could be Michael Gallup and it could be Dalton Schultz. When Tony Pollard's on the field, it could be Tony Pollard, but it's kind of up in the air who this third pass catcher is, and I'm not really sure I want this third pass catcher going up against a Washington defense who has improved a lot. I'm pretty sure Montez Sweat is out this week, so that helps a lot, but Michael Gallup, I wouldn't feel confident starting him unless one of the other Cowboys receivers, such as Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb, is banged up and miss a week. So go ahead and sit Michael Gallup and probably Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, my second sit on my receiver this week, it is Brandon Cooks. Sounds like Tyrod Taylor's probably done for the year. That means it's the Davis Mills show.
Oh boy.
Brandon Cooks had 2 good games out of the 7 games. Davis Mills was in 2 out of 7. Last week, he only had 8 points against the Colts. The week before that, he had an okay game against the Jets with 13, modest. And then he had 3 against the Titans. Brandon Cooks is not a safe start, especially with Davis Mills as the quarterback. And the Texans are going up against the Seattle Seahawks that have been fairly good against. Somehow they've been good against the big outside wide receivers that they've played against so far. It's when Davis Mills is your quarterback, I don't care who the receiver is, it's not a safe start any week, honestly. So that's why I'm sitting Brandon Cooks this week. I know it's hard because he can go for 10, 15, 20 points any week, but it's just I'd rather start someone else who's safer than Brandon Cooks with Davis Mills at quarterback when you are playing the Seattle Seahawks.
My final sit-on wide receiver this week, it is Odell Beckham Jr. going up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a very solid defense in general, and Odell Beckham Jr. was completely touchdown dependent last week. I think he had 20 yards and a touchdown. It shouldn't even have happened going up against the Jaguars. So Go ahead and sit Odell Beckham Jr. against the Cardinals. If he gets a touchdown, then I'll be wrong. But I don't see him getting that, so go ahead and sit him.
Yeah, and just a couple tight ends real quick. Just to throw the names out there. Tyler Conklin of the Minnesota Vikings. He could be a stardom this week against the Steelers. The Steelers' middle linebacking core absolutely sucks. Devin Bush is terrible. Joe Schobert is terrible. Tyler Conklin is in for a big day. He should be seeing a lot more targets, being kind of the 2A, 2B option with KJ Osborne without him Thielen out. So therefore, it's pretty safe to start Tyler Conklin. He already gets a lot of targets with Thielen on the field. So, I mean, without Thielen, his target share should go up. He should be in for some red zone touchdowns as well. He gets targeted in the red zone, especially with Thielen gone. He's going to, Kirk Cousins is going to need that red zone dependent weapon, and it could be Tyler Conklin. And then you're sitting Tyler Higbee for the same reason you're sitting Odell. He's the fourth option on the team behind, not including the running backs, behind Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and Odell. He doesn't get a lot of targets. He's very touchdown dependent, and that's if he's getting targeted in the red zone. So sit Tyler Higbee and start Tyler Conklin this week, and I think that's going to wrap up our Week 14 fantasy football stardom sit-ems. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out our Week 14 Weekly Pick'em podcast. We were joined by my brother Mikey again. Show some love to our sponsor, Little Italy. Show some love to the greatest podcast on turf. We appreciate all of our supporters, and we got some big things coming soon for you guys, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys tomorrow with our best bets.
See you.